When you're talking about notable women from the Middle Ages, one absolutely cannot ignore Wallada bint al-Mustakfi. Pictured here on the side of the screen, Wallada was known for the thing that hangs around her neck. She was known for the literature she produced. And also, her mere existence in Middle Ages Islamic society was a political notion. Um, but to understand this fiercely independent poet and heiress, um, one must first place her in context. The context that is Al Andalus, Middle Ages Islamic Spain. Al Andalus on this map is the area around Cordoba on the Iberian Peninsula, which existed between the 700s and the 1400s as an Islamic state in Visigothic territory. And so the second Islamic Caliphate is the territory that's pictured here in green, specifically when it was run by the Umayyads, from which Wallada descends from. And so the Caliphate is the religious and political uh, succession of the Prophet Muhammad uh, that ran the Islamic territories during the Middle Ages. And so during the year 711, there's a Visigothic civil war going on in the Iberian Peninsula. And the sixth Umayyad Caliph, Al Walid I, invaded the territory and made it into Islamic territory. And shortly after, the Abbasid revolution ended up chasing the Umayyads out of the Islamic heartland and into the Visigothic territory, where they made the Emirate of Cordoba, an emirate being lesser than a caliphate, more like a secular monarchy. And by the time Reconquista was starting to gain some traction, the emirate changed its name back to a caliphate, just as a wartime morale boosting tactic, which is not something we would be surprised to see today. And so Wallada's father, Muhammad III, was the 10th caliph, which places her close to the end of stable Islamic rule in Spain. Depicted in this painting at Calahorra Tower is what a court in Al Andalus may have looked like, specifically the kind of court that Wallada might have lived in. This is a 19th century painting, a modern one by Dionisio Bexeras in the Al Andalus Museum. And it aims to try and recreate the political and commercial environment that would have populated a Islamic palace. And so women in Al Andalus could be heiresses under Islam, they could work, and they could own property, which are all the key components of having strong and independent women, which we see the fact that the women in Al Andalus produce a lot of music, art, and literature. And a component of this is that there are at least 25 confirmed women poets, which Wallada bint al-Mustakfi might have had something to do with. Um, Divorce was allowed, and women had to be treated amicably after, which Wallada was never married, so divorce doesn't really apply to her. But the reason I bring this up is that she was a strong, independent woman who acted very differently than a lot of other women at the time. She was never controlled by any man, whether it be a father, brother, cousin, or any sort of other man. Um, and I think because divorce was allowed in this society, it is much more likely that she was able to be free and express herself in all of the ways that she wanted to. Wallada bint al Mustakfi was known best for her proud nature. She had a lot going for her. She was a wealthy heiress, fiercely independent, and she had a knack for literature, and she was known to be quite beautiful. She's said to have had blonde hair, blue eyes, and fair skin, really exotic amongst the Islamic community, and she did not wear a headdress. She was born circa the year 1000. The scholars can't really seem to agree when she was born. And she died in the year 1091, so she lived quite a long life. She was the heir to Muhammad III, who assassinated the previous caliph, and shortly after he met the same fate, leaving Wallada his wealth, properties, and influence. And with that wealth, she created a majli in her palace, or literary salon. Um, and what was unique about her literary salon was that it was co-ed, which attracted Ibn Zayden, her longtime lover and rival. Um, what else was unique about her was that she was never married, just really sticking with her independence and her choosing herself over anyone else. The work she is best known for are two boastful poems that she used very uniquely. And so she had this cloak, and on her right shoulder she had inscribed, "I am by Allah fit for high positions, and am going my way with pride." And so she was wealthy and beautiful, and she likely would have faced some scrutiny for a lack of headdress and proud public presence, but this is her saying that she will take no criticism. And on her left shoulder was written, "Forsooth I allow my lover to kiss my cheek, and bestow my kisses on him who craves it." This is very flirtatious and romantic. She wasn't afraid to talk about all the parts of her love life, which we will see shortly, and she invited the admiration of others, which is kind of scandalous. And we know from the right shoulder that she very much felt like she deserved praise and admiration. She's known for her love poems, which is one of the popular forms at the time called ghazal. And she's also known for her satires, or her hisha. And so, in this poem, "When the evening descends, await then my visit, because I see the night is the one who keeps secrets. I feel a love for you, which if the sun would have felt a similar love, she would not rise, and the moon he would not appear, and the stars they would not undertake their nightly travel." Here she's being bold with her love in this ghazal. She's telling her lover not to visit her, but await her own visit. And you wouldn't see that in Shakespeare. She's saying, "I'll be in the garden, and you, the man, can wait in the tower." She's breaking norms and expressing her intense love for this partner, which we know to be Ibn Zayden. Another ghazal of Wallada goes like this. After this separation, do we not have some means by which each lover can complain of his fate? During the moments of visiting one another in the winter, I stood upon the burning embers of passionate yearning. Why is it that I spend my evening alone? Destiny has hastened on what I used to fear. The nights pass while I see no end to my separation. My manumitter has lost patience with the bondage of passion. May God water the earth that has showered its blessings on your dwelling place copiously and generously. And so in this one, we're talking about the same lover, and she is saying, "Oh, I miss you so intensely." And she cannot wait to see him again. But the poems start to take a change dealing with this subject matter. This poem stands as a fork in the road between her notable ghazal and Hija. If you did justice to our love, you would not desire nor prefer my slave girl, nor would you forsake a fertile branch in its beauty and turn to a branch devoid of fruit. You know that I am the moon in the sky, but burn to my chagrin for Jupiter. And so the translator chooses to use the word chagrin, which is an intense feeling of shame and embarrassment, meaning that she is absolutely abhorred that her lover, Ibn Zayden, has done this to her, has cheated on her with a slave girl, her slave girl. And it's at this point that we see a turn away from ghazal and towards Hija. Ibn Zayden, in spite of his qualities, is unkind to me for no reason. He looks at me menacingly, as if I'd come to unman his boyfriend Ali. Moving forward, they call you the Sixer, and your life will leave you before this nickname does. Sodomite and buggard you are, adultered, pimp, cuckold, and thief. So, here in these Hija, which are kind of funny, we see that she is pissed off. Ibn Zayden cheated on her with her slave, and she is mad about it. She calls him Sixer or Hexagon, and says that it stands for all of these different things, really just trying to tear him down. And more than that, she dedicates an entire poem to this sodomite jab, saying that the reason he treats her the way he does is because he's afraid that she'll try to castrate his servant, or his boyfriend in this case. And one more poem. Ibn Zayden's backside swoons for the rods in men's pants. Were it to spy a penis atop a palm tree, it would swoop down on it like a vulture. And so this right here is a monument that was built in 1971 called Monumento a los Enamorados, which commemorates the love shared by these two famous poets. And I kind of gave the quick version for the sake of time, but they do have a lot of back and forth. But for quite some time, for quite many years, it is this Hija like slandering back and forth. And yet they have this beautiful sculpture with the two hands being held close together up at the top. And That's how they're remembered. And just for a moment, I would like to speculate how her poems might have looked, because due to civil wars between caliphates, emirates, and warlords, as well as Reconquista, there's not a lot of surviving primary sources for Wallada Bint al Mustakfi. And so some of the dominant scripts at the time, either long standing or emerging, um, could have been potential options for her to use. The Kufic script, or the Western Kufic script, because she lived in Al Andalus, um, likely wouldn't have been used, um, because it was older at the time, and it had angular, blocky characters that might have been difficult to quickly scribe down. And then there was the Maghribi script, which was brand new at the time, and emerged in the West, so would have been within her sphere of influence, but it was reserved for the Quran. But the Maghribi script did influence the Naski script, which emerges around the same time, around that year 1000. Um, but this script is used for secular text, and it is the most popular Arabic script today. Um, and so I was luckily able to find a Ibn Zayden manuscript from the Alange Library in Spain. And this script is using the Naski script. Um, and you can see um, throughout this poem of his that there are the long, swooping lines which are characteristic of the Maghribi and Naski script. And so Wallada likely would have been writing in a similar style. And that brings me to the end of my topic. I hope that you've learned something.